Go ahead and get started, and other people will join in. So we are now on the third of our four webinars. So the last one really focused on two of the five skills that were needed in order to implement um, motivational interviewing. And those two skills were uh, asking open-ended questions that would allow participants to sort of tell their story. And then we also covered giving affirmations, which helps us to help the participant build confidence, the belief in themselves, their self-esteem. So affirmations really help people feel good about their ability to make changes. So what I want to do before we get totally started with our new material, well, first of all, is I want to do sort of like a little quick review of on like a pretend case. So you guys will use chat, or again, you can just unmute yourself, either one. But this is what I want to do is I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. I mean, I've been reviewing the homework and the homework looks great. Everybody's getting around 95%, if not 100. So either I make the quizzes really easy or you guys are right on top of it. But this is going to sort of test the spirit of motivational interviewing and also the application of some of the techniques that we've learned. Then we're going to move into the to our other three techniques. So I'm going to quit because this I know that this slide looks a little busy, but I'm going to let me review a quick case for you. And what I want you to be thinking as I review this case is based on what we've learned so far about motivational interviewing, I want you to find all the missteps that you can in this particular case note. And I'll talk in a minute about why I'm using a case note. And I don't care, you can include in the discussion just things that shouldn't appear in a case note that have nothing to do with motivational interviewing, but there are motivational interviewing mistakes in this. So we have this participant, her name's Denise, and here's the case note that the career coach has written. Denise is a procrastinator and did not complete the My Next Step activity that she'd agreed to do for our meeting. So she didn't really have any career ideas. And I think everybody, and that's why I picked that, would be aware. My Next Step is a Department of Labor sort of career interest survey, helps you identify what you might be interested in doing. So second part of the case note is she isn't really sure what she's interested in. She never really follows through. The next part, her boyfriend broke up with her and she didn't see it coming. So she was so shocked. He was coming in late and sometimes he was even staying out all night. So she thought maybe he was seeing someone. Her mother was really upset because she really liked the boyfriend and told Denise that she probably is the one who ruined the relationship. And then the last part of the case note is I explained that relationships are really tough, but that she should not put her life on hold. She should just go ahead, do the My Next Step, which might distract her from her boyfriend. I told her do it this week, and then we could discuss it at our next meeting. So I want you to note in for our example, my pretend example here, I wish it was more pretend than it actually is. I never really make a lot of stuff up because I'm too lazy. So it is based on a real thing. The A, B, C, and D you would never put in a case note. I was just doing that so that as you comment in chat or you unmute yourself, you can direct us to which part of the case note that you are that you're referring to. But the question is, based on what we've learned so far, what are the missteps in this case note? What do you see, either in A, B, C, or and D? Let me see. I will pull up chat. And we have Rachel is saying, yeah, she's very subjective about being a procrastinator and the follow through. C is just out of control. I think good comment. And D is telling her what to do instead of helping her to figure out what she wants to do. So D is where motivational interviewing could come into play. Aisha says, throw away the entire case note. All options are very personal. Repeat the question. The question's on the slide, just based on what we've learned so far about motivational interviewing. What are the missteps that you see in this case note? William says, too much personal information. You back up here. Felicia would not have listed C, nor would I. And Francisco, case note should be more objective. We shouldn't put our opinions in our case note. And so if I now take this, you guys are all like dead on. If I take this A, B, C, and D, and I just put it in motivational interviewing format for the most part, A, which you guys said, so perfect, is where we call her a procrastinator. That is judgmental and the opposite of the spirit of motivational interviewing, where we're supposed to emphasize compassion and empathy, is it's being really authoritarian and paternalistic and judgmental. And it almost makes it sound like the career coach is against Denise and not like working side by side with her. What I see in B is that this whole thing of she never follows through, that is overgeneralizing. It totally belittles Denise. And I think it's also not true. She never follows through. I mean, that's kind of gross in terms of generalization. I mean, she never is just too strong a word anyway. Although, again, like somebody said throughout the whole case note. See, her boyfriend broke up with her. I think everybody hit that. It's just way too much detail. It's not important and it has nothing to do. It's confidential. And in terms of motivational interviewing, when I'm writing a case note, I mean, people are going to tell me stuff because they trust me and that we built this relationship. If then the client finds out that I'm like spreading it all through the case note, then I think that some of that information is going to go away. I'm not going to have access to it because they're not going to trust me to tell me. I mean, I could totally simplify that, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But and then D, and I think that most of you got that in this, is it totally took charge. It's telling Denise how to live her life rather than having Denise make her own choices. So I'm looking up again and seeing that Joanna is saying that there's no coaching in this case note. It just sounds like the person's being judged and being exposed for their personal problems and issues. So entire thing is wrong. I wish I could tell you that, like, again, I just totally make this stuff up, but this is I mean, it's a made up example, but it's very representative of things that I oftentimes read. So a quick review, I'm going to suggest either you looking at your own case notes, or if you're a supervisor looking at people that you supervise. I think the case notes can really help to confirm that motivational interviewing techniques are in practice, or they're being used in practice, and that the spirit and the philosophy of motivational interviewing is present. So whether for yourself or your team, a brief case note review can show whether or not the techniques are being effectively employed. So I'm going to show you one other slide. And if you review these, which again would be an extract of a case note, I explained to her that if she just finished this, we could discuss the results by next week. I advised her to try and do the activity so we can talk about it. I recommended that rather than pausing everything, she consider engaging in my next step as a positive focus. I advised her to calm down. I told her to do it this week, or case manager explained to Denise that sometimes our problems makes our lives a little bit challenging, but you should continue to focus. What do these all convey? They all convey that the writer is not using motivational interviewing techniques, because if you read between the lines, just like D in our former example, their career coach is trying to control the participant. And what we talked about from our session, webinar number 1, and I think emphasized again in webinar 2, is that when we tell people what to do, you're building resistance, and then you have to overcome the resistance, and it just makes it more difficult for us as well as the participant. So I want to just take this one and I'll very quickly, I'm going to rewrite. Instead of saying I explained to her that if she finished this by next week, here would be a use of motivational interviewing. I mean, if I were reviewing case notes, I'd say, oh, this person understands about and is using motivational interviewing. I asked Denise what the pros and cons were of moving ahead with my next step. So again, I've given control back to Denise. And she said that focusing on her career pathway would take her mind off of personal issues. So now Denise is in control. She's making her own choices, and that's where we want to be. Next, I advised her to try to do this activity. And I asked Denise, what do you want to do? And Felicia, you're saying I would ask if she's having problems that we can work on together. I don't disagree at all. I could just ask her directly. I would probably just be careful about using the word problem, just because I don't want to present it that way. Is just say that, are there any kind of challenges that I just think challenges like turns down the volume that we can work on together so that we can get the next steps completed, or talk to me a little bit about the things that got in your way. And maybe there's a way that we'll be able to figure out a workaround. Excellent. But it's what I like is you're turning the power back over to Denise. And then in this one, I recommended that rather pausing everything, she consider engaging in this. Again, I asked Denise, going back to our last session on asking open-ended questions, how she felt about pausing her career decision making. Would delaying making a decision, would that make her feel better or would that make her feel worse? And, again, let her sound it out for herself. I advised her to calm down. How about I asked Denise, what techniques really work for you that help you to relieve stress? And get her to maybe see if she's interested in implementing some of those. And I told her to do it this week. Again, we're going to build resistance. She almost isn't going to do it because I told her to. And I said, I asked Denise if it made sense to her to do it this week so we could talk about it for the next meeting. So I just want you to notice that in my mind, at least, the difference is I'm going to say it's minimal, but it's major. I mean, it's 180 degrees, but I think the way in which I write is a little bit different because this time the career coach is using motivational interviewing techniques. I, as a supervisor, or I for myself, would be able to see, again, constantly, I'm giving up control. I'm letting people make their own choices. I'm trying to be a partner. I'm trying to cooperate. I'm not trying to run anyone's life. So, by asking questions, we're allowing Denise to come to her own conclusions. So I just sort of rewrote the case, shifting back. And again, this might even be too much, but I'll show you a little bit of how I might do it. Let me move this. So the thing on the A side, that's what we've already read, but I might say Denise and I met today due to personal problems at home, or due to issues at home, not problems. Denise was not able to complete my next step. And because I would assume that that's tied back to the last one where it said at the end of this meeting she was going to complete my next step. So I want to make sure that the case notes are tied together. We don't miss a beat. And then I asked Denise if she wanted me to explain how my next step works. She said yes. So once I explained it, I asked her how it might benefit her to complete it before our next meeting. She said it would help her come up with career ideas, give her a chance to get her mind off of her issues. And Denise agreed to do it. So again, it's shifting. And when we read this, I think that we can see that the case manager is using motivational interviewing. So that is kind of a quick review of where we were. And again, by looking at the homework, I think that people are, I think we're all getting it. Then the hard part is then like actually putting it into practice, I guess. But what I want to do now is we're going to move to our next uh, skill. And so what we're going to cover for the rest of today is asking permission. That's where we'll start. Then we're going to look at using reflective listening, which is oftentimes affiliated with like active listening, empathetic listening, lots of different terminologies for that, and then summarizing. And then we will have at least outlined all five of the critical skills. So again, and I probably will, beat a dead horse with this, but these skills, I think that, they're, well, I think they're like easy to understand, easy to see examples. It just takes a lot of practice to master them. So, just like asking open-ended questions and using affirmations, you almost have to be conscious of it and then make yourself do it. And then after a while, it just becomes internalized and you don't even think about it anymore. So we're trying to retrain ourselves. And that really, to me, is the key to learning new skills. The more you practice, the less you remember, the less we remember the old way that we used to do it. It just becomes intentional. So before we actually get into asking permission and all the do's and don'ts of it, let's do another little sort of quiz. So before sharing a concern with a participant about something that they have said, like maybe they said that they're going to go away for a week and they're going to skip their midterm, and you're like really concerned when they're telling you this. Or sometimes it's like I've had participants, I actually have had my nephew say this, they're going to ask for time off at the job interview before they've even been offered a job. And so it's like, yeah, I don't think that that's like, it's probably not the best idea. But so I have this concern. What should I do? And you can use chat for this. Remind the participant that you know more about the subject than he or she does. So your advice will be good. B, tell the participant about your concern. Why are you concerned about them telling the employer already that they want to take some time off or that they're going to miss the midterm? And then tell them how that they should go about addressing that concern. C, ask the participant permission to share your concern. And if they say no, they don't even want to hear it, and the concern is important, I mean, you need to share it anyway. Or D, ask permission to share your concern if the participant needs, and the participant really needs to agree to hear it before you share it. And if they don't agree, move on. So I'm looking over here. I feel like A, but sometimes D. Um, I'm seeing B and C and D. Rachel says it should be D, D, D. And the correct answer for motivational interviewing, I think 90% of you got it. Sandy, I'm sure that was a typo when you said C, you meant D, because D is the motivational interviewing correct answer. So the thing is that A, I'll tell you what's wrong with each one of them. A is acting like you're the expert, and you aren't. You're not the expert about this person's life, their values, their decisions. I'm not the expert, so no sense telling them like, oh, I know a lot more about this than you do. B, while I want to tell them about my concern and I want to talk to them about how to address it. But in that format, standing alone, that is me taking over, just like with Denise, telling her exactly what to do. And we don't want to do that. C, if I ask permission to share their concern and they say they're not interested, they don't want to hear it, and then I go on about it anyway, then I'm ignoring the participant, and I'm again kind of taking away their power. And so D is the correct answer. By the way, just so that I don't know that when I first heard this, is where I was really, when I first heard this, that I have to ask permission to tell somebody something or give them information or give advice. I was like, what? There's a lot of times I do know more about this subject than they do, or maybe I have really valuable information that they need. And so, I want to be able to dispense it. And motivational interviewing does not say that you cannot give advice. Motivational interviewing does not say that, you can't provide information. Motivational interviewing says that what you have to do is just ask permission first. My experience is that when you ask permission, 99.9% of the time, the participant says, yeah, go ahead. Because you're still giving them power and you're still putting them in control. And I'm going to give you, I'll give you examples. Melissa asked, do you think that our customers look at us as experts in our field? What do I really think? I think it depends on who the participant is. I think that there are likely some dislocated workers who do not, well, there are probably some youth who do not. I mean, my nephew has never worked a day in his life. He's gone to college and he does not, like when my brother, his dad says, you should send your resume to Aunt Jody. I mean, it's what she's done for her entire career. He still doesn't send it to me. Now I don't know if that's a personal thing or he just thinks like, I know her. Like I know Jody, so or Aunt Jody. So like I can't imagine taking advice. It is weird to me that our own family members sometimes don't look at us as a resource, even though this is what we spend our time in. So I mean, I think some do and some don't. But my real point is, I don't think it matters because I don't want them to think that I'm more expert than they are in their own life. What I do want to do is ask them, like, would this information be helpful? Like, for example, and hopefully I'm not using this as an example later in this webinar, but it's like I have information about schools in our area that have or are LPN. I know all the schools in the area. I want to say, if it would be helpful to you or if it would save you time, I can give you that list. I don't want it to be because now I've asked permission. Whereas if a participant says, I'm thinking about going to LPN training, and I just pull in, to my file drawer and I go, well, here's a list of schools that do LPN training. I didn't ask permission to give them that. So in that moment, I know it's a subtle thing, I took over. So what I always want to do is say, would this be helpful? Is this something that that you would like? Would it be okay if I share a concern? So the thing is that from time to time, we are going to want to give them advice. We want to provide them information. So all I'm saying is ask permission. Only provide the information or advice if the person asks you to do it. Like if somebody says, let me ask Sandy, like, what do you think? Or what would you do? Well, now they've asked you for your advice. So you can provide it. Or you can say, I have some ideas about that if you think that would be helpful. And when they say yes, then I can go on. The next thing is you have to be brief and focused, be relevant. What's that mean? It doesn't mean that when somebody gives you permission that you have free reign to go on and on and on as much as you like. You want to be brief and get their initial reaction to the information that you just provided. So are they interested in more, or are they already showing some kind of signs of resistance? Which leads us to the next bullet, which is at the first time a sign of resistance, full stop. So if they start going, yeah, or like, rolling their eyes, looking at their watch, arguing, saying, but any of those things that we've talked about earlier that are signs of resistance, is if they show signs of resistance, just stop. Because you're not going to move forward as long as they're resisting. Then you're kind of doing it for yourself. So you can say, well, I told them, I tried to tell them so. And then the last step is that I engage them in evaluating the information that I've provided. So if I say, I have an idea, if you're interested in hearing it, and they say, well, not right now because I think I've already made up my mind, then no means no. Don't go on. So I just always want us to remain respectful, reduce their chances of being defensive. And what we're trying to do is keep the lines of communication open by keeping them in control. And so I at the end, of course, I'm going to ask them like, so what do you think about that? Or is that helpful? Or does that change what how you're thinking about it? Always ask them for feedback about the advice, recommendation, or information that you've provided. So again, I want to be clear. You can give advice in careful, measured ways. We just have to ask permission. So here's the technique that we'll want to practice, and that is trying to get here is it's called ask, offer, ask. And it's a technique to help people make changes, feel like they're making changes without pressure. So it does involve asking questions, offering information, and then asking a few more questions. So, it's just sometimes, we forget that we can't make other people change. But I do know that when I forget to do this, I do make it harder for them to change. Why? Because, we're falling into persuading, and persuading feels a little bit like, I don't know, advice giving, judging. It's convincing, pleading, arguing for some kind of change. And so inevitably, then again, it goes back to something that we've already talked about. What they do in response is argue against change. So they go into, instead of making change talk, they start making status quo talk. And so our efforts backfire. So what we do is we ask permission. So you implicitly are saying, I value you, and I respect your autonomy. So, what I might say is, would it be okay if I share a concern? Or I have some information, if you think that would be helpful. Or I would love to talk to you about your idea about missing the midterm or about asking for time off at the job interview, but I only want to talk about that if you're open to it. And so I ask, can I tell them? And in my example here, I have an idea if you're open to hearing it, and the participant says, yeah, go ahead. Now you can share all your information. So we're going to offer, and then that third step is we're going to check back about the information that you just offered. So the underlying message again is about their autonomy. What did you make of that offering? Or what are your thoughts about this? Or how does that fit or not fit with what you're thinking about doing? Or, based on that, what thoughts do you have? Has this impacted your thinking? So, because we could think that what we've offered, the information, the advice, the recommendation is a perfect fit, but they might not. So we got to check and see how it landed, because again, we're not really in control of other people's change. So I'm going to give you a few examples. You'll use chat. And so this slide is going to give a few examples of asking for permission to give someone information. So, oh, wait, this is just the example. This isn't the quiz. I'm sorry. Got ahead of myself. So the thing is, this is like that little cheat sheet that I was saying that if I had a little desk guide, something in front of me so that I could look down and go, yeah, I'm supposed to ask permission. Would it be all right? I would like to share a concern if you're open to that. I'd appreciate just a couple minutes to provide you with some information that might be helpful to you, if that's okay. Or I'd like to share some resources that we've had that helped other people I've worked with that are in similar situations, if you think that would be useful. I'm really worried about something and was really hoping that you'd let me explain it to you. Or I need to spend a few minutes today on and then whatever the concern is. Is that okay? And I have an idea if you're open to hearing it. So all of those are, I think, good ways, introductory ways to ask permission. Now we'll move to the quiz. So using chat, I've given you 5 statements that a career coach might say. So I just want to make sure that we can distinguish between the two approaches, barreling ahead or asking permission. So you can just write down the letters in chat of the ones that ask for permission. Which of these 5 statements ask for permission? Yep, and I'm seeing the answers come in. Yep. Felicia and Matthew, look for more. There's more. So, okay, I think that most I'm seeing there's almost all are getting the right ones, sometimes not all of them, but the correct answer is A, C, and E. So ACE. Would it be okay if we talked about how you feel about going to technical training? I've asked permission. And C, I want to give you the results of your TABE test, if that's all right with you. And I could refer you to business services if you think that would be a help. Each one of those have asked permission, and you can see that B, I don't think that's going to work, and here's why, is me as a career coach taking over, or I have information. At D is it's again, it's me taking charge and handing them information they didn't ask for. But what I want to show you on this particular slide, because I think that sometimes it's like that I hear this or not argument, but this comment all the time is that, doing motivational interviewing does take time with the participants because, well, first of all, it takes time to learn a new skill and now I got to practice it. But also when I ask open-ended questions, people are going to say more. And so we're going to have more conversation. I think that's a good thing, but I do know that can take extra time. But what I want you to see on this is it takes very little time to ask permission. I timed myself. I used a stop watch. And for me to say A, would it be okay if we talked about how you feel about going to technical training? Took 4.2 seconds. C took 3.8 seconds. And E took 5.2 seconds. So I just want you to see it doesn't take a lot of time to throw asking permission in. So, and it's even really less if I just count the part that is just asking for permission. So if I just said, like, would it be okay? That's even less time than I measured myself on the whole thing. So this process should not slow our conversations down any more than really saying please and thank you do in other situations. So now let's apply that to an actual scenario. So here is Ralph, and he comes into the program, your program, and he can't decide what to do with his career. He doesn't have any idea what he'd like to do. He knows he didn't love his last job, and now he wants to do something different. So my challenge, using asking permission as the skill, you would like in your mind's eye to refer them to the local workforce center or the part of your center that does interest testing because you think that might give him some answers or my next step online. How do you state that in a way that asks him permission before you tell him your idea? So how do you state that in such a way that you're keeping him in control. So again, you can unmute yourself if that's just too much to type, or you can use chat.
I'll just unmute. I think you could just say, could I share with you some information that we have to help you learn about next steps or ideas for your next career?
Yep. And you can stop right there. Yeah. Can I share with you some ideas that I have? You're asking permission. And it's right to the point. Let's see. And then Melissa says, would you be interested in learning about the local workforce center, which can help you sort out what you'd like to do to just explore your interest? Again, kept the participant in control. Is it okay if I provide you with some options? Excellent. And I have some thoughts. Would you be open to hearing them? Perfect. And hi, Ralph. I have a program for you that can that you can use to find your interest. Can I share this program with you? It's Felicia. That's fine because of the last sentence. I'd probably flip that. I can I share a program that I have that can help you to explore your interest. But I'm not. That's fine. The thing is about motivational interviewing that I find is that if you're at this, you're using these techniques, even if you mess up, like and you ask a closed question, or you use praise rather than an affirmation, or you ask something, in a way that is, less asking permission and more like kind of telling somebody what to do. If you do motivational interviewing like 90% of the time, you get forgiven for the other 10% where you just mess up. So, like, we don't even have to be perfect. But here's how I wrote it. Mine was, it sounds like you aren't, okay, so this is actually reflective listening. So, shouldn't have put this part in. If it sounds like you aren't really sure what's out there and what would be a good fit for you, I have some ideas for how you could start to figure that out if you're interested in hearing them. And again, the second sentence is the asking permission. I just rarely have anybody who says no, unless it's like, I'd love to hear it, but my parking meter just ran out. Like, and there's a real thing, or my ride is waiting. Other than that, I don't really get no. Let's try another one. And this is Sheila. Sheila wants to go to school for nursing, but she isn't sure what schools in the area have the nursing program. She hasn't really explored what programs exist, nor what any of the entrance requirements are. How do you provide her information while again asking her permission before you provide it? I do have a few resources to share if it's okay with you. Excellent, Ronnie. Would it be okay if I provide you information about various nursing programs in our region? Excellent. I have some great programs available. Do I have your permission to tell you about them? Yep. Renee, because we're the still in control, the participants still in control. Anyone else want to go for it? Would you like me to go over the information regarding local nursing programs for our area? Yep. And are you open to talking through the next steps to achieving your goals? And Sheila, I was at a job fair recently. Would it be okay if I share with you the information that I received on nursing programs? Yep. All of that's good. You're right on track. Let me show you my answer. I just said I do have information about schools in our area that have nursing programs, if that would be of interest to you. Might save you a little bit of time in your search. Um, Sheila says yes, and now I have the floor. But again, remember back to the beginning slide that I put up, it does not give you free reign to now take over and talk for 15 minutes. It's like I give the information and or talk about whatever the concern is. So let me ask you this. I've covered the basics of asking permission. And so I want to ask you, let's like just see how I did kind of explaining it or getting the concept across. Why is it important to ask permission before dispensing advice? Like, why is that important? Why is that powerful? Use
Because
chat, unmute.
how about because you give the customer or the participant the power and the options for them to make the decisions by themselves.
Yes, you're giving them power, exactly, and permission to. And you know what? What I think is that when we do that, we're training, in a sense, our participants. Maybe this is like a stretch or a diversion, but you're training them to think for themselves. It's like that I'm not doing all your thinking. Like we're trying to train people to not need us. And so I think that by always keeping them in control, we're helping them to build confidence. Who else? Why anybody else?
I think that with asking for permission, it also gives an opportunity to ensure that the participant is fully engaged and alert before we convey that information. Sometimes when I've asked for permission, I've had people say, well, hold on, give me just a second to get a pen and paper. So then I know that they are truly fully engaged and they're really interested in the information that I'm going to give them.
Yep, exactly. I love it. And then I like this one that the participant needs to agree, absolutely to agree what I have here to say. Otherwise, you're just blah 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 blah. Because I never even I don't. I'm not even sure I'm interested in what you're talking about. And I love this one that you want to make sure that they're receptive. Yeah, otherwise it's a waste of time. When people have a choice, they tend to be more invested. And remember that what we're trying to do is get people to make change talk. And when I get people to like talk about this thing, or we're talking about it together, the more we talk about making change, the more likely they are to make it. So when people are presented with things and they have a choice, they're going to be much more invested. So here's what I thought. I'll put mine up as well. I think it's according to motivational interviewing, it's just a respectful way to share information with another person, whether that's honestly your husband, your child, your coworker, your participant. It's just a good habit to get in. It does allow the receiver to stay in control, and you guys mentioned that, and to be empowered. I think it builds trust and rapport, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do is build relationships so that people think of us to call us to share things, and they're want us to be more included in what's going on in their life. It emphasizes it should be personal choice. And if they agree to hear your advice, they're less likely to be resistant to the information. So excellent. I think that you guys hit all those high points. So we're going to move away then from our asking permission, and we are going to move to reflective listening. So there's a lot that we could talk about in terms of listening, given our format, a webinar. I mean, in a live thing, we can do a lot more practice, but I've decided to teach it by just using examples, show examples that we can work through rather than talking too much about it. And I don't want to talk about listening at the 30,000 foot level. When we are in either Chicago or Normal and we're in person, we're going to have an opportunity to practice all of these skills. I have a couple activities, and that's where you can really put all this to practice. But I do want to make a couple comments, a couple observations about listening. And that is just something to think about. This just boggles my mind because I think it's interesting that although listening is such an essential skill at work, at school, in relationships, in friendships, just all aspects of life. And it's something that employers talk about all the time. Just need somebody who pays attention, somebody who's listens. We really don't get a lot of formal training in listening skills. Like if you think about it in grade school, in middle school, in high school, we take writing, we have to take reading. We even like, I don't know about your school, we even had to take public speaking classes. But I cannot remember in grade school, elementary school, middle school, or high school, actually getting training on listening skills. I got it in college because I was a psychology uh, major, and I took a lot of social work courses as a result. So, I mean, that's a skill that social workers and psychologists would use. But it's as though we're born it's like people think like you're born knowing how to listen, so we don't get like a lot of training or practice during our developmental years. And if you think about it, like oftentimes we're not rewarded for it, even. And so, and I see that Renee, you're saying it's why most people can't do sales, because listening is the most important skill, not talking. Absolutely right. I teach sales. I teach like job development, employer outreach, and it's like it's listening, and using reflective listening. Those are actually really strong sales skills. So anyway, there's nothing on report cards for listening, and I just thought, I would show you how much training we actually get in this as a result. I think that a lot of people, like, we hear, but it doesn't mean that we were listening. I know that even sometimes, I mean, I won't go there. Things hit your eardrum, but it doesn't even mean that you're listening to it. Like, I can have music on in the background. I couldn't tell you what's playing, because although I can hear it, I'm not really listening. So anyway, I want to tie this back to what we've been talking about, which is, remember how you respond when somebody makes change talk. They say, I want to go to school. I need to get a job. I can't live on unemployment. This isn't enough money. And that's all change talk. And so our goal is to evoke it. So we evoke it by asking a lot of open-ended questions. And then our participant, in my scenario here, makes change talk. Then last time we dealt with this, I said there were two options, two skills that you could use when you hear change talk. One is to use an affirmation, and the second one is to use active listening, reflective listening. So an example, if I help my daughter now, she'll do better at school as she grows. An affirmation is you recognize that your influence can help your daughter. Remember, affirmations are always you statements. You're just reflecting back. It's feedback. Say what you see. Reflective listening is, well, it sounds like you want to do what you can for your daughter now, so you're giving her a firm foundation in the future. I'm repeating back what I think I heard. So the goal is we ask open-ended questions. We're listening all the time for change talk. When we hear change talk, reflective listen, or use an affirmation. So just to make the point further, difference between listening and hearing. Hearing's a function. Listening is a desire. Because if you hear and you hear really well, you're going to hear everything, but it doesn't really mean that you're paying attention. Like, this happens to me all the time. My husband will be telling me something, and he'll go, did you hear me? And sometimes I really do have to say, I heard you, but I wasn't really listening. I have no idea. So because there are lots of barriers to listening, and I'm not going to enumerate them all, Judy's, oh my God, me too. I mean, people, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know why I don't listen better to him. But anyway, there's just barriers. I mean, sometimes it's just a rate at which people speak. Do you know that people can speak 125 words per minute? Like, when I'm talking to you now, if I'm talk, it's 125 words a minute, but your brains can process 800 words a minute. And so that gap allows your brain to, like, side process to kind of take up the slack. So, and then other barriers are your moods, stress, physical health. I can tell you one right now. What time is it? 2:49. Tomorrow I'm having a colonoscopy. So all day long, I have not eaten anything. I have only been allowed to drink. It's at 3:30. I start taking the meds. So I am famished. My stomach is growling. I don't feel very well. And I didn't realize, oh, it's like, oh my gosh, the day before you do a webinar, I mean, the day before a colonoscopy, you're doing a webinar. Wasn't great planning. But that definitely impacts, like, how you listen, where you are sort of at present. So anyway, in your own prejudice, your biases, definitely will impact your listening. My brother and I are on opposite ends, honestly, politically. And so as soon as he starts talking, I just I zone out. I just, because I don't want to get in an argument, but I don't want to hear what he has to say. So anyway, all of those things will have impact. So when you want to listen, you have to take hearing to this higher level. You have to kind of immerse yourself and really focus on what the speaker is trying to say, even if they're saying it in a monotone, even if they're not establishing eye contact. They're doing all those kind of things that make it a little bit harder to listen, because listening is not superficial. I mean, if somebody's going to take the time to talk to us, we should probably take the time to listen to what they have to say. And so, again, it could be empathetic listening, active listening, reflective listening, all. Motivational interviewing tends to use reflective listening as like the nomenclature, but if you've learned any of those others in counseling skills, they are the same. So basically, what's it do? It just involves fully concentrating on what's being said, rather than passively hearing. And so the key to active listening, I'm going to guess so many of you have already had training in this, but the key to it is listening enough to be able to repeat what the person said or paraphrase what they've said, because that ensures, first of all, I have to actually listen. If I know coming up I have to repeat what you said, then I definitely have to listen. By the way, where we're really good at this is somebody gives you directions and you go, it's like, you're going to go up here and you go to the first light. And then as soon as you get to the light, you're going to make a left. If you want to make sure you really got it, you're going to repeat it all back. So I go to the light, I make a left, I go a mile. I'm going to see 7-Eleven on the left-hand side. I'm going to turn right there. That's active listening. I mean, it's active listening for a purpose, but we know how to do it when we need to. So what I want to make sure is that as I'm talking to clients, I'm in my mind going, I'm going to have to summarize this. I am going to have to repeat this back. So it does help us to stay focused, and oftentimes I think this happens where you think you heard what somebody said, but you really can't be sure unless you double check by repeating. And it's like, oftentimes, it happens all the time because communication is so inexact. People might say a thing, but the thing they said isn't what they really meant. And so when you repeat back what they said, they get this opportunity to correct themselves and go, yeah, I know that's what I said, but okay, but here's what I really mean. And so, I think it helps to move conversation along. And I think that if we take time to listen to them, it just opens up the conversation. It is challenging to master. It takes a lot of time, a lot of practice. But again, like I said, you don't have to hit it out of the park, even if you get it wrong, but you get it right 80% of the time, you're still going to be doing well. This was one I think I use this in training. This is an example of not listening, reacting without understanding. I heard you'd get me a job. And somebody said, we don't get you a job, you get your own job. That is not active listening. That's an example of an emotional response. We've just heard this so many times from so many people over the years that we're not listening to what their message is that they're sending or what their meaning is. we're just listening to the words and we overreact. And I think that overreaction makes people uncomfortable. It makes them more cautious about what they want to say. Maybe they feel misled, maybe a little embarrassed, but it can shut down communication. So here's a little bit better way of saying that. And that is, so getting a job or going to school is of interest to you. That's active listening. And so I think that what notice that here I'm trying to understand what they're saying rather than react. And so what I think that that does, it shows them that I'm actually listening. It helps us to understand what they think, what they feel, what they're just trying to convey. It gives the speaker an opportunity, the person, a chance to correct something that they didn't mean. And it really, I think, strengthens the bond between us and the participant. So we're going to repeat back. Why is it important? Because common reactions when people listen is, it just like nothing hurts more than to sense that when you're telling somebody something that you think is important or, I don't know, heartfelt, is to just think that it's hurtful when it just, you can tell that they're not really listening to what you're saying. I mean, people complain about this all the time. Parents complain their children don't listen. Children complain their parents don't listen. Supervisors complain the workers don't listen. Workers complain their supervisors don't listen. Like even friends who are mostly reliable sources are sometimes just too busy. And so imagine you come home from a day at work and you were at a conference or at a training and you're excited about something that happened and you want to share and you're telling your partner about it, about like this experience that you had, and they like fall asleep while you're talking. It just is this that people have a tendency, like you feel hurt, you feel betrayed. I'll tell you a really personal example. Many years ago, I had a situation where I had to get biopsies in both of my breasts. And so, but there was a 7-week period that there was no room at the end. They just didn't have any openings to do this biopsy. So for 7 weeks, I didn't know, do I have cancer? Don't I have cancer? Am I going to live? Am I going to die? All of that stuff was going through my mind. And I was traveling, still doing training, just like I am now. And I was in Georgia at a training. And that night I called my boyfriend and I'm like, I've had a really bad day. It's just on my mind. I can't believe I have to wait 2 more weeks. I'm talking about all this stuff I'm feeling and all the fear that I have about going in for this biopsy. And he listened. Well, he heard. He didn't listen because after I say all this, what he said to me is, "Hey, I just wanted to know, not to change the subject, but do you know where the remote is for the TV?" And it's like I knew at that point, this is the end of that relationship. It's I've poured out my heart and that's your response, is to just move on. So, oh, Melissa, when my daughter was 12, she wrote me an entire letter telling me how I don't listen to her. And you can't be accused of that if you repeat back what they're saying. But mostly what the reason that I put up this slide is because people want to be understood. And that's why finding somebody who does listen is so powerful, because when somebody listens to you, it means you're being taken seriously. Your ideas, their ideas, my feelings, they matter. And the listener's empathy makes me feel like I'm being understood, makes me want to talk more, makes me feel like I'm accepted, I'm respected. And I just want you to see on this list, on the second column, third one from the bottom, makes me want to come back. And so, when we talk later about engaging and re-engaging people, this is a really powerful thing because it makes people want to come. And so, Melissa, good. I had to self-reflect and make a change to make sure that we're connecting. Of course, you want to connect with your daughter, with your child. So let's look at how we will do it. So here's an example. Reflective listening. Customer, I'm uncertain about anyone other than myself or my family watching my children. And I've given you 5 possible responses from the coach. What I want you to do is find the reflective listening response, and you can put it in chat. Yeah, and I assume that because everybody is putting E, that means you've had time to read through them, read through them all. So, and E is the reflective response. It seems like the idea of entrusting your children to someone unfamiliar makes you uneasy. And then what I'd say is, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I want to get at the root of the problem. Is it that they've watched like 2020 and so many times where they always show like abuse, have those kind of programs, or is it that they just never have um they've never used somebody outside their family before, and so they're just a little nervous? I just want to know more about what is going on. So on this slide, what I'm just doing is showing you what is wrong with each of the other statements. Have you never allowed anyone else to care for your children at all? It's challenging. It's implying that the participant isn't being truthful. I'm trying to catch them in a lie. I think it sounds snarky. B, by doing so, you might be preventing your children from experiencing all the advantages. It's judgmental. Research, C, show indicates that's taking charge. So it's worth considering. Like, I'm telling them what to do. D is, and we talked about this in terms of diverting. I enrolled my children in daycare and they adapted well. It's like now we're not talking about the client, we're talking about me. And that's diverting, just like your parents saying, when I was your age, I had to walk to school both ways with no shoes. Like, no longer hearing what you're saying about standing at the bus stop, but telling you about their experience. That's diverting. And E is the reflective response. Good. So let's do another one. And here we have, I haven't worked before at a real job. I doubt anyone would hire me. And I've given you 4 responses from the coach. And I am again Yep, I see everybody's got B, and that is correct. So you're thinking that an employer would not hire someone who doesn't have any work experience. That is really making you nervous to try. That's what I heard. And so then again, we're going to go down. We're going to go down that path. And so again, what I see is, what kind of job are you interested in? That's diverting to a new topic. They're saying that they doubt anyone's going to hire them, and we're like talking about what you're interested in. It's changed the conversation. B is reflective. C is taking charge again, ordering them, and D is very critical. And so not probably where we want to go. So notice that, again, sort of a cheat sheet. The way in which you easily can begin is to say, so what I'm hearing is, it sounds like, so you feel, you're wondering if, or what I hear you saying is, by the way, you can't use that every time. So what I hear you saying is, and they say something else, and you go, what I hear you saying is, and I want to repeat, I want to paraphrase what they've said, but I don't want to sound like a parrot. Like they go, like back to the, see if they go, I haven't worked at a real job before. I doubt anyone would hire me. I don't want to say, so it sounds like you haven't worked at a real job before and you think no one will hire you. I mean, you can do that once if you just think like, I don't know, the air conditioner was on and I couldn't hear. So I'm just repeating back what I thought. But if you do that over and over and over again, you are going to sound like a parrot, and it's going to sound like a technique. And so it's you're always trying to paraphrase, but I can't start everyone with what I hear you saying is, or but more you're wondering if, or from your point of view, you're thinking, or what I heard you say is, so here are those are some openers, and I'm going to put them on the next page, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you now one where what I've done so far is I've written the answers, and now I'm going to have you do it so that you write the answer. So again, you can either unmute or you can use chat, whatever makes you less more willing to participate. So I think about going to school and getting some skills, but I really need to get a job right away. I know unless I get some skills, I won't get a job that I really like and will pay me well. So someone has said that. How are you going to, you can use my little cheat sheet. What would be a good reflective listening response?
I would say, hi,
Hey,
it's
Melissa.
Melissa. I think I would say, let me make sure that I understand, because I'm thinking their concern, and I would repeat, let me make sure I understand. You definitely are interested in school, but you also feel an urgency to get a job. And then I would ask, am I correct in what I heard? Are these the points we need to address? Or, like
Excellent.
going from there.
See, Melissa, and perfect, and stop there. Because I just throw it right back to them to make sure am I on the right track? And maybe they say, well, actually, I mean, this would be a point at which they could say, well, I know I need to get a job right away, but no, what I'm really saying is I know I have to go to school in order to be able to get a higher paying job, even though I really, and so even though I really need a job. So that's perfect to throw it right back to them. And it sounds like it sounds like you, William. Let me make sure I heard you correctly. All of those are right, but I want you to encapsulate what they've just said. So Rachel's saying, it sounds like you're interested in getting a job that both you would enjoy and would help you be financially secure, but you're wondering if school or skills gains are something that you might be interested in. I love it. Because that shows, again, that you are really trying to hear what it is they're saying, rather than saying something like, well, we have a lot of different schools. Let me show you, like, what occupational skill programs that, we're going to be starting, this fall or whatever, which is not at all reflective of what they said. So Rachel, that's really good. Anybody else? I'm waiting for one more. You see how long I can wait? Okay, Sandy, good, yay. So what I hear you saying is that you want a job, but you feel like you need to get some skills. Yes, that's good too, because it is encapsulating, again, repeating back. They have the opportunity to say more. And so that's perfect, but it shows you're with me. Okay, let me show you what I came up with, but then I'm going to have you do another one. Always want you participating. The way that I reframed it or reflective listened it is, as you see it, getting a job is your highest priority right now. Yet in the back of your mind, you wonder if learning some skills might help you to get a higher paying job that you might even like better. And then I could say, just like you did, Melissa, is that right? Or is that, does that sound like what you were saying? Again, give it back. Give it back. Great. Okay, let's do another one. And this one is, I want to get a better job and get ahead in life. I'm pretty determined to make some better money and quit taking such low paying jobs. So what is your reflective listening response to that? Unmute or use chat.
It's me again. I think I would say I understand or what, yeah, I understand you to mean that you want to, or that's an awkward way of saying it, but I'm trying to say that I understand that you're saying you want a better job because you want to go further or get further in life, and you have the determination to do so. So what can, what actions would you like to take? Or how can I assist you in the next step? Or
Okay.
what are you
So
looking
what
for?
you've done is you've done reflective listening, and then you've gone to an open-ended question.
Mhm.
So one led right into the other. Okay, good.
Okay.
And let's see, Sandy, actually, this one probably works there too. I'm hearing you say you want a job, but you need some. No, well, it's not. They're really not saying in this one that they want better skills necessarily. Someone?
Yeah, I add that let me make sure to understand you want to get a better job and get ahead in life and pretty determined to make some money and quit taking such low paying jobs. Is that correct in what I hear you saying?
Exactly. Perfect, William. Perfect. And then over here, I have Rachel. I hear you saying that you'd really like to get a job that will help you to make more money or just have a better financial outlook in life. And that's, all different ways of repeating back what they've said. And Andrew says, it sounds like you're interested in finding a job that will pay more than the jobs that you've held in the past. Perfect. And I want you to even see in our answers, none of us will say it in exactly the same way, but all of us have said it in such a way that makes this participant think she was listening or he was listening to me. He's with me. Like, they're trying to understand. And Marlo says, let me make sure that I understand what you're saying. You're determined to make some better money. And in doing so, you do not want to take a low paying job, or you're not willing to take low paying jobs anymore, or however we want to say it. Here's mine. Getting ahead sounds like it's really important to you, and you'd like to find a career that's more financially rewarding than what you've been doing. So either way, I think of all the skills, I don't know, I mean, we're all different, I guess, because we've talked about reflective listening. We've talked about asking for permission. We've talked about asking open-ended questions. We've talked about affirmations. I think, and this again is me, is that of all of the skills in motivational interviewing, this one is probably the most difficult to learn because it does require this total focus on what the speaker is saying. Like if while somebody's talking, what I'm doing is thinking of where I'm going to go next in the conversation, then I'm not really listening to what they're saying. I'm more worried about what I'm going to say. And so, if you're trying to think ahead, you're not really listening. So this really, I think, requires practice at home, at work. Reflective listening it's the foundation of all conflict resolution, of marriage counseling, of negotiation, of just building those kind of strong bonds with people. Because again, people want to be understood, and that really is what reflective listening is all about. It forces you to not just say, I understand. It forces you to prove that you understand by saying it back to the person, because you have to be able to understand to be able to give this good summary, which leads us to that last skill. So again, like right now, we're going over these like quickly. I mean, an hour and a half webinar, you could spend weeks just learning reflective listening. When we are all together, we're going to be practicing these in much, I don't know, well, in with each other. So we have this opportunity. And Maria just said, so what I hear you saying is you're tired of taking low paying jobs. So what kind of jobs do you think that you qualify for? So that is reflective listening followed by a open-ended question starter. So our last skill is actually kind of built upon the last skill, the reflective listening. It is summarizing, and what we're doing is we're able to emphasize change talk where we can. So if we circle back to something I keep saying because it's so important, we want to increase the frequency of change talk and increase the frequency of the participant actually hearing themselves. So if a participant makes change talk, then they've heard this thing one time because they said it. And remember, I learn what I believe when I hear myself speak. So they've heard it. Then if I use reflective listening and repeat back what they said, because I just paraphrased and use reflective listening, now they've heard it twice. And then if I include that change talk in the summary, then they now heard it a third time. And that is part of our goal, is to increase the frequency of them using and hearing change talk. So what happens is that when we are, well, you can make summary statements at the end of your counseling session, your career coaching session, but you can also use them like when you're in the middle of a coaching session, but you're about to change gears, you're about to shift to something else, then you want to summarize that part of the conversation, because otherwise it gets very, very, very confusing at the end. So summary statements are basically just a form of reflective listening. But what we're using them, instead of reflecting back just what they said last, we're using it to highlight important aspects of the discussion that we've just had. Maybe it's a 10-minute discussion that we've had, and I want to just pull out those things that are the most important that we've come to some agreement on. I also can use them, as I just said, to shift the direction of the conversation. Like when the conversation's it becomes stuck, I might say, so, what I hear you saying is that you don't want it, you need a job, and it sounds like that's really urgent for you. And what I also heard you say is that you think up to this point, you've been taking some low-paying jobs just to have money coming in, that, maybe sometimes you've taken jobs to survive, but haven't been really what you're interested in. And you would like to put more energy there. Have I gotten that right? Or is there anything that you want to add? And then I want to shift the conversation to say, would it make sense to talk a little bit about some of the training short-term training that we offer that would get you skills to be able to get higher paying jobs? Would that be something that you'd want to hear like more about? So I use the summary to be able to now shift the conversation. So that's what I mean there. And you can use summaries early and throughout the conversation. I don't want us to think you only use them at the end, but you do use them at the end to pull together everything that we've talked about. So what I want you to see with the summary is that you get to make decisions about what to include and what to exclude. You are sort of in control here. You get to decide what you want to present. So what you want to include is anything in the conversation that helps the participant to move forward. Basically, you're picking out that change talk. And so summaries, I think, help to illustrate to the participant that, you have been listening, and they reinforce what they've said and what you've said. And they also can allow the participant to elaborate a little bit further. Let me give you a cheat sheet for what it sounds like, how you start. Again, this might be something that I would have in a desk guide, something in front of me as I'm learning skills, because I am slow at the uptake. I have to have like a sheet with like little cheats until I internalize it, sort of like learning anything, playing the piano or anything else. So I might say something like, we're about to finish here, and I just want to ensure that I understand things correctly. Or if I was doing it earlier, I'm about to shift gears. So I'd like to take a minute to make sure that I understand everything that we've talked about up to this point. Here's like make a checklist of where we're at. Let's review what we've talked about up to this point. Hey, this might be a really good time to review what we've discussed, or our time is running out and I'd like to pull together what you've said so far. Let me know if I've missed anything important that we've covered. So notice even and I've said this in earlier sessions as well. I know that like motivational interviewing can tend to make sessions a little bit longer. I wanted to use a couple examples here, or an example here to show you that you still can control it by saying, hey, listen, our time's running out, or we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we're on the same page up to this point. You have to give those cues, because as you know, there are people that we work with. They would stay with you 2 to 3 hours if you'd let them. It's like they like talking to you. They like you. They don't have anything else going on. So I just want you to see that. So I might say something like, I wanted to give you an example. It's kind of hard on this to give you too much of an example, because like you actually have to be there and you'd have to have this whole conversation. But you want to, here are the steps. You announce that you're about to summarize. Let me stop and summarize what we've talked about. Or this might be a really good time to see where we're at. Or we're nearing the end of our appointment, and I want to make sure that I've captured everything that you've said. And so, by the way, for me, I don't know about you, I'd be taking notes. I just ask, is it okay if I take a few notes so that they don't because I have to be able to repeat back stuff and I don't want to miss anything. Then you want to include both sides of any ambivalence about change. You're not sure you wanted to be here today. Like say probation, parole sent them. Somebody made them come. They don't really want to be here. UI, they're forced to because they're getting unemployment benefits, whatever the situation. You're not really sure you want to be here today. And you came because in this example, your mother insisted on it. And so just acknowledge that if there's ambivalence about being here. Summarize any change talk that you've heard. So you do think that you need to do something, but you still aren't sure what road to take. You know that you would like to get a place on your own so you can be more independent of your mother. And you aren't really sure where to start, but you do know that you want a job. And so those are all the things that you could imagine in our conversation. And then invite them to correct anything that you've missed. So what did I miss? Did I miss anything? Easy. So let me show you one like altogether that does that. Announces that I'm about to summarize, includes both sides, and includes change talk, and invites them to correct anything. So here is the structure. Let me stop and summarize what we've just talked about. You're not sure you want to leave construction because it's all you know. But at the same time, it's backbreaking, dangerous, and you really aren't making enough money because the weather impacts when you can work. So there's a lot of downtime. You said that you wanted to get more information about good paying jobs in the Annapolis area. And I said I would reach out to the Workforce Center to see how they can help you figure out what field might be right for you. So I'm including anything I heard there. Then include any change talk. You'd like to learn more about short-term training programs that could build on your current skills. And you said that it's a high priority for you, so you really want to move quickly. And then invite them to correct anything that you missed. Did I miss anything? So that is a example of using the 4 steps. Announce, include. If there's ambivalence, don't ignore the negative side, because it'll then seem like you're manipulative. Include all the change talk, any change talk, again, that you select, you get to select, and then invite them. So anyway, that is a summary, making summary statements. And what I want to do is I want to open this up for one, as like we have just a couple minutes left. Those are our skills. The next session, we're going to be talking about the stages of change. But what I want to know from you is, if I can just hear from a couple of you, what are some of the best things that might happen for your participants if you learned and implemented motivational interviewing? Use unmute or chat, because now we've covered briefly, I know, but the 5 critical primary skills. And so based on where we're at, what might be some positive outcomes if you learned and implemented motivational interviewing?
I got my hand up.
Okay, yay.
One of the biggest things I think they would learn is how to do it on their own. They constantly won't have to keep turning around in their life asking somebody for assistance. They will learn how to do the job search on their own, do their own resume, figure out things on their own.
Yeah, because you've coached them to get them to that point by using these skills. Excellent. Andrew says great for relationship building. Ronnie says they'd feel more empowered in their own decisions. Engagement would increase. For so many who've had no choice, they would now have more choices over their life. Just like the word empowered. Exactly. Anybody else?
Melissa.
Melissa, yeah. Melissa, you can't let an opportunity go by.
Well, you know, I can't. If I'm going to be in the class, I'm going to participate.
Yay, I love it.
But I went a different route. I don't know, maybe just I've been in the field a long time. So with active listening, I can hear all the misinformation that they have. And sometimes that makes the process more difficult. It makes it turns them off from, enrolling in the program or, and things like that. So when I'm actively listening to what they're saying, sometimes I'm cringing because I'm listening to all the misinformation they have. And the best things that might happen is that I can clear up any misunderstandings, any miscommunications, and give them a clean picture, of what they're looking for, or, a clean picture of how I can assist in what they're looking for. And they also get an opportunity to, just tell me in their own words what their needs are. So I went a different route because that's reality for us.
No, and I don't think that, but I'm not sure that I think that that's even different. It's that I have to listen. I'm listening. Okay. It just is sometimes I'm listening to stuff that I don't share that belief with. And so that's where you're saying like they say stuff and it makes you cringe. But now that we're having the conversation, I am able to say, I've heard some of this would be asking permission. Some of the things that you've said don't fit with my experience of our agency or what we do. Do you think it would be helpful if if we talked a little bit about how I see that this can help, or how I think that some of the information that you've been given is just a little bit off, and so again, I think that it's the same thing, but it's respecting where
Mhm.
they're at without reacting and going, well, that's not right.
Right,
And
right.
I love this one. And that is, as motivation engagement increases and self-efficacy increase, participants are likely to complete training, earn more certifications, secure employment, and those improvements positively impact your WIA performance measures for enrollments, completions, and positive exits. I should copy that, put it on a slide. So anyway, then I'm going to leave that last slide. And then I'll leave it for next time. But anyway, so if you have any questions, comments, I'll answer those. Otherwise, I'm going to see you we'll see you again at a webinar in 2 weeks. And then I'm actually personally going to see you again in 3 weeks. I just made my reservations and I am ready to go. Any questions? Any, I don't know, thoughts, hopes, fears, dreams? Oh, I'm trying to stop sharing. Good luck